Hey guys, so let's talk about Two and a Half Men. So, Two and a Half Men was a show that was developed in the early 2000s. It had a simple premise. A man looking for a place to stay shows up at his brother's doorstep. He moves in with his brother, who is a rich playboy and is played by Charlie Sheen. But in the show, he's called Charlie Harper, and his brother, who moves in with him, is called Alan Harper. It's a quirky, funny show. Charlie, the rich playboy, got to make fun of Alan for being cheap all the time because Alan was always making alimony payments to his wife, to his ex-wife, and at the same time he was also making payments to the house that his ex-wife was living in. Alan, on the other hand, got to make fun of Charlie for being drunk all the time and for not remembering the women that he's been with. Oh yeah, and every now and then their mother shows up to the house where they constantly don't get along and they make jabs at each other and the brothers express to their mom how much they ruined their lives and how dysfunctional they are because of their mother. So the show goes on along the years, it develops traction and it becomes a hit. Until in 2011, Charlie Sheen, who plays Charlie Harper, has a meltdown. So he calls the co-creator of the show, Chuck Lorre, names like clown, a stupid man. Charlie Sheen and Chuck Lorre get into a feud and Charlie Sheen ends up being fired. This was along the time Charlie Sheen was making 1.8 million per episode on the 8th season of the show. So in the 9th season of the show, in the opening of the 9th season of the show, they kill off his character Charlie Harper and they replace him with Ashton Kutcher, who plays Walden Schmidt, a tech millionaire. Now this is where the show took a downturn. It stopped being funny. This was, according to me, because of their choice of casting. Ashton's style of comedy doesn't really fit in with the concept of the show. For example, Ashton Kutcher's style of comedy is laugh out loud kind of comedy, like ha ha kind of comedy. While as Charlie Sheen's style of comedy is charming, sort of makes you think kind of comedy. It's a giggling kind of comedy. Charlie Sheen didn't need to yell or shout or scream to make you laugh. He would just point out certain predicaments that he's in or his brother is in the show and compare them to world events, fairy tales, superstition, famous songs, and it would make you think and it would make you laugh. That's the style of comedy that Charlie Sheen evoked. That's the style of comedy that viewers and the audience came to love and grow, and that's why the show was such a hit. For instance, Ashton Kutcher's style of comedy is like, wow! Why are you on my bed, Alan? You should be in your bedroom. Wow! That's so messed up, dude! That's not charming comedy. That's not witty banter comedy. That's not what viewers and audience who grew up loving the show liked or wanted to see. It just changed and they became desperate. Charlie Sheen's kind of comedy is, wow, I don't know what's more strange. That it's 3 o'clock and I'm not drunk, or that there's a grown man lying in my bed. That's charming kind of comedy. That's soft kind of comedy. For instance, in season 9, episode 17 of the show, the type of humor that they chose as comedy was having the characters vomit throughout the entire episode, and that's what constituted comedy at that point of the show. You can't have everyone on a show having obvious comedy, like not having charming or intelligent kind of comedy, witty comedy. Everyone on the show at that point, when Charlie left and was replaced with Ashton Kutcher, started having the same style of comedy of pointing out the obvious, whereas Charlie had a comedy of making you think. Ashton Kutcher's style of comedy is by using or mentioning the obvious, stating the obvious, and that's not what viewers who grew up with the show wanted to see. On the other hand, Charlie Sheen's kind of comedy is by comparing a certain predicament and referencing it to a superstition or a movie or a fact of life or a concept of life that someone can relate to and that isn't quite obvious at first. And that's what audiences wanted to see from that show. Charlie could be in a scene with himself and it would still be humor, because he's not pointing out the obvious. He's having banter in his own head and with himself, and it still was humor. At that point of the show, everyone had laugh out loud comedy, just making simple statements about what's in front of them. And for a show that only has one main story and not other stories that branch off, that doesn't play well. That doesn't hold the interest of the viewers. Furthermore, Ashton Kutcher's character came onto the show as a perfectionist, as someone who didn't have a flaw. Every scene and every person he was introduced to was amazed by him, found him extremely attractive, or was extremely impressed. And you can't have that in that kind of show. You gotta have a flaw that the other characters can make fun of, or that can find amusing to mock or to point out. As the main character or as the replacing character of that show, you gotta have something that the other characters can find dissatisfaction with, that can use that as a storyline. But if everyone is worshipping you, if everyone is looking up to you, it doesn't make an interesting plot. Charlie Sheen's character on that show had many flaws. He was drunk, he was forgetful, and he never wanted to be with the same woman other than one night. And that made something that the other characters can make fun of him or mock him on. Instead of always having the upper hand, Charlie had sides of him that were not all perfect, that someone could find a flaw in. Anyway, the show went on, and over time started losing traction as expected. And they started to compensate for that by including major guest appearances, stars like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Kathy Bates, Miley Cyrus, Jason Alexander, Hilary Duff. They brought in all that star power, but ultimately couldn't replace and couldn't make up for the loss of Charlie Sheen. And as you'd expect, the show ended. 4 seasons later, they made a lot of references to Charlie Sheen's character, Charlie Harper, ultimately mocking him and killing him off, and which just showed how big of an influence he was on that show. The replacement and demise of the show 2.5 Men just shows you can't just put everyone to fill that role, no matter the star power that Ashton Kutcher had. The actor or character that you're trying to replace with should have a similar style of comedy or acting or attributes to the actor or character that you're replacing. For instance, a good replacement option for Charlie Sheen on 2.5 Men would have been, for example, Richard Lewis. Richard Lewis' style of comedy isn't laugh out loud funny, it's witty banter like Charlie Sheen. He's also charming, persuasive like Charlie, and he wasn't perfect like the way they made Ashton Kutcher's character to be. Richard Lewis has flaws that could be exploited on the show and that could be used as a topic of banter back and forth on the show, like it was during Charlie's time. Richard Lewis also appeared prior on 2.5 Men in the first season, where he was Charlie's accountant, and he made fun of Charlie's handling of his funds, and it wasn't in a laugh out loud style of comedy. It was witty banter. It was intelligent humor, and he went toe to toe with Charlie, which not many people can do when it comes to comedy and taking jabs at. The demise of 2.5 Men was ultimately caused by 2 factors. One was the public meltdown of Charlie Sheen, and secondly was the recasting choice for Charlie Sheen by the producers of the show. The producers of the show tried to compensate for the absence of Charlie Sheen by filling the show with star power, which ultimately lost focus of the problem and the objective of the show. Alright guys, let me know if you agree with this, and mention below who you think would be a good casting option to replace Charlie Sheen. Thanks.